Hello there, and welcome to a very special episode of the Fancy Scientist podcast. This is not like my normal podcast episodes. In fact, this one is actually a training. So, if you are interested in wildlife conservation or environmental career, you are 100% going to want to watch this. In the past, I haven't released these to the public. I've only given access to those who signed up for the webinar. But I want to help as many people as possible. And I understand people find me from all different ways, which is why I have the podcast, which is why I have YouTube. So I decided to make these trainings accessible to everyone. But I still encourage you to sign up for the email list because when you do, you're invited to come to the trainings live, which means that you get to interact with me, feel the energy of the room. And I also give away master classes and one-on-one mentoring sessions during this time. So if you're not on the list, you can head over to fancyscientist.com/3-pillars-2- to success. When I'm saying dash, I mean hyphen. And I will put the link in the show notes and the YouTube description so you won't miss it. Another thing you'll get when you sign up for my email list is a workbook. I want to make these less of me lecturing and more a give and take, more of a co-evolution, because wildlife careers, as you'll find out from this training, are so unique to what you want to do. Therefore, it needs to be this sort of co-creative process. The workbook allows you to take a deeper dive into yourself. I provide you with questions and exercises for you to do so that you have a better understanding of what you want to do, and you'll be able to sketch out a roadmap of where you are right now and where you want to be. And through this 3-part training series, we're going to go over exactly how to get there. Make sure you take the time to prioritize watching these trainings. They are only going to be up here for a limited time until October 23rd at midnight Central Standard Time. So do whatever it takes to make sure that you watch these trainings and get the information in. After that, I'm going to take them off of the podcast and off of YouTube. What you're going to hear about in tonight's training is all about the mistakes that people make in this field, including myself. I've made big mistakes and I didn't know that. Nobody told me that I was making these mistakes, to be quite honest. So we're going to talk about what those mistakes are, why they happen, what you're doing wrong, and how to get unstuck. And you are going to learn the first pillar in my proven framework. This framework has worked for me. It's worked for my students. They've landed jobs in internships, tech positions, graduate assistants, and permanent full paid positions. So tonight, what we're really doing is setting the groundwork for your wildlife conservation or environmental career. It is great that you're being so interactive, and keep that up. So let's get started with just put it in the chat. What would you say your biggest problem is when it comes to having a career in one of these fields? I'm going to say wildlife a lot. I actually am trained more as an ecologist. You'll find out, well, actually, I don't talk about this in the training, but my degrees were both in biology. But I talk about wildlife fields a lot because that's really where I wanted to focus my research. But the advice I give applies to wildlife, zoology, conservation, environmental sciences, ecology. What else am I missing? Those are the primary ones that it applies to. Okay, so lack of jobs, finding a job, networking, experience, not enough experience, a full-time wage, livable wage, lack of getting responses, experience, not hearing back from jobs, finding a master's program. Okay, routine, skills and experience. I'm seeing experience a lot. So what I've noticed from being in this field now for a very long time, and then also running the Getting a Job in Wildlife Biology Facebook group. In this group, I ask everyone what their biggest struggle is. I send everyone a message, and the group is now over 10,000 people. And it usually boils down to one of these two categories. You can't get a job, And when I say job, also, I'm also just talking about you. Like if I say job a lot, even if you're not looking for a permanent job, I'm referring to like internships, volunteer positions, things like that. It usually falls into one of those two camps, or you don't know what to do next. You're unsure of how to go about this career because it's not like becoming a doctor or a lawyer where there's a series of steps where you take like the LSAT or the MCAT. I don't know if you take those anymore, but that's what it was when I was in school. It's an ambiguous career. It took me a while to figure it out. So even for those of you who are saying things that deviate a little bit, like I am having a hard time landing or picking a master's program or something, it's usually because like either one of those two things, like you don't know what your next steps are, or maybe you're not able to get a job. So you're working towards a master's program. I have a lot of people who do that. They can't get a job, so they decide to get a master's. So you are in the right place. This is often what most problems fall into. And even if your problem does not fall into these categories, we can talk about it and we can try to problem solve along the way. But first, let's do the training. Oh, somebody here is 61. Yes, that I really truly believe you're not too old. I also truly believe that anyone can make it in this career. I really 100% believe that. I believe that there is a place for everyone. I was never the smartest. Even though I have a PhD, I don't even believe a PhD is about being smart. It's really about being determined, passionate, willing to put in the work. You might have to get a certain level of grades and things like that, but even that's about like hard work and putting the time in. So I truly believe that anyone can make it in this career. So if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling like you don't have enough experience, that you're frustrated, as you can see in this chat, you're not alone. And I have so many posts, so many. I could fill up like, hundreds of slides with these kinds of posts that people are applying for jobs. They can't find jobs, that they keep getting rejected. You are not alone. And when I first started applying for jobs and getting rejected, I really felt alone. I was like, what is wrong with me? Actually, even before that, I remember one of my friends was applying for jobs and she was not getting interviews. And I was thinking like, what? Like she's not doing her job applications right. Like it's not that hard. And then when I started applying jobs, we'll talk about this a lot tonight. I found out it is hard. It is competitive. And a lot of people do not tell you that. Most people do not tell you that. And it's also not your fault. It is not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. You just haven't been taught how to do it. You haven't been taught how to get a job. So that's what I do. Professors and people of that realm, they teach you the ecological concepts. I teach how to get jobs. And I'm so passionate about it because you'll find out I struggled. So this is the one thing that nobody has taught you, probably, chances are, that how to actually get a job. You get the degree and you think you're going to get a job, but it's not that easy. And the degree no longer is enough for most jobs. So you didn't learn the factors that lead to a permanent paid position. And that's what we're going to go over in this 3-part training. So my book, I had a book out 2020. My book is more about getting the job, and this training and the programs that I run are more about the lifelong solution. It's more about your career, getting the career that you want. And it's not only about the technical information, although a lot of this training will focus on the technical information, because to be honest, that's what people want. But I personally love mindset work. And I think it's actually the most important thing, because when you have the mindset, when you truly believe, like I believe in you guys, that you can do it, you won't let anything get in your way. You will find a way to overcome your problems, no matter what the problem is. And it's about knowing how to adapt because things are crazy right now. It's about knowing your worth and knowing how to convey it to employers. And we'll go into details about all of these things. Another thing that probably nobody has told you is that wildlife jobs are different. Often when people are struggling to land jobs, I ask them to send me a job application. And a lot of the job applications, 99.9% that I have looked at are meant are used. Sorry, sometimes I'm letting people in the room, so I might be a little distracted. They are from advice for just regular careers. So just the regular, like, job advice out there, the resume advice. But it does not work in our field. It really does not work. Our field is just different. It's unique. So just the advice out there is not good. And it's funny because in my program, which you will learn more about as we go along, one of my students, I remember she was saying that her parents are like giving her this advice to just like keep applying and applying for jobs. And they're like, you're spending way too much time on one cover letter. And I, asked her, I was like, what do your parents do? And I think they were engineers, but they were something in a very different field. And also they're older. So like there's two things. It's like, one, it's a different field. And then also the advice from, like, even when I was training in my PhD, which was, I started in 2006, like I've seen the field change so much. So the advice changes with time, even within our own field. So old advice doesn't work. And a lot of professors, they've been in this field for a long time and they're giving the same advice over and over again. And it's not changing. They're not changing their advice because it's not their job to get you a job. Even in graduate school, it is not their job. Their job is to write grants, to bring the university money, and to write publications, to have research papers published. And that brings attention and prestige to the professors and the university. And that's how they're rated. If it's a teaching university, they're rated on teaching as well. But they don't, it doesn't matter if they get you jobs or not, or any of their students jobs. And you might have professors that genuinely care about you, but even if they do, they just don't have the time to really study this stuff. So that is why I'm here. And it's why I do what I do. We'll go more into this. Sometimes I get ahead of myself because I get really excited. So I might repeat myself, but that's okay because repetition is really important for learning. Another thing I want to add is that it doesn't get easier. So once you get the job, it doesn't mean you have a job for life, especially here in the United States. With the federal positions, people thought that was the golden ticket, that you got a federal job and you're in it for life. But we have a new administration and that really shook things up. So anything can happen. But just to show you that this person has an advanced degree, 15 years of experience, and they're still struggling. So just because you're at a higher level also doesn't mean it gets easier. There's competition at all levels. So for this training, what I really want to focus on is not just like, I know you guys want to get jobs and I want you to get jobs too, but it's also about like, what is your career? Like, what are you working towards? And being able to pivot and adapt and grow with the field and yourself, because we change as people too. You'll find out in this presentation that where I thought I wanted to go is different from where I am now. I never expected in a million years to do what I am doing now. And I don't even think it really existed as a possibility when I first started out. I don't think the technology was really there to do something like this. And as I mentioned, not just a job, because stuff happens. These are after we had Doge here. that to cut all these federal jobs. For those of you not in the United States, this is when Elon Musk took over this new branch of the government, and he slashed funding for a lot of federal workers. I saw so many posts like this of people who this person here, it says they're in the federal service for 18 years. And then I also want to add, a lot of times we can get really down on our field, but it's not just our field that this stuff happens to, and that there's challenges out there. My partner, he is in computer software, and my nephew, when he was growing up, everyone was telling him to get into coding, that coding is like where it's at. And now he's in college, and I just read an article about how people a little bit ahead of him who've graduated from college, who went into computer science, they were told to learn coding, but they're struggling to get jobs because now AI is taking over and AI can code. So it's not just our field. There's job cuts across fields. Things change. And don't worry, this is not going to be all doom and gloom. We're going to get to this positives here. But what I really want you to know is that we're really in a time where things are changing. Nobody can predict what's happening, and you have to have this in mind. And I really learned this lesson when I was in therapy years ago during my postdoc. For those of you who don't know, a postdoc is a temporary position after your PhD. And I was really worried about finding a permanent job. And my therapist said, it was something, she's like, tell me about your biggest problem or your biggest fear. And I said that I won't land a permanent job. And she said, no job is permanent. And that really hit home with me. And I was like, well, what do you mean? At that time I was married, and I was like, my husband has a job. He works as an electrical engineer. He makes really good money. But she was right. He was laid off. Actually, he's changed his jobs multiple times because of layoffs, because of just like problems with the companies going under, all this stuff. She's right. There is no permanent job. The government jobs we thought were permanent in our field, and they're not. Things change. So this is just part of life, and we want to prepare ourselves. We want to empower ourselves. And this is what I am here to do. I'm not here to bum you out. You might be a little bit bummed out right now, but this is the reality. We have to accept where things are. We have to accept what is. But you are different. You're here. I truly mean this. You showed up. You were putting the work in. I have an email list of over 5,000 people. Oops. Somebody's trying to get their dog. I understand. My dog's picked up all the time too. I have an email list of 5,000 people. And so I said in the emails, there's 600 plus people. So not even 1/5 of my email list showed up. Now, some of them have come in the past, probably. So I can't say that. And some people do have conflicts and stuff like that. But regardless, you're here. You're putting in the work. You're putting in the time. I've given away like free programs to people, and people have not done them. So I know this works because it has been done on if it's worked on myself, it's worked on my students. When you put in the work, when you do the work, it works. So you're here. So this is great. And let me just give you some evidence. This is one of my students. I cross out people's names just because nobody wants to brag about not being able to get jobs. So I just do this in mostly just in case. But anyways, he was applying for over a year to hundreds of different jobs. This transformation was literally in weeks. He got just working with me and joining my program. He had 2 internship offers. This is somebody else. They posted this to Twitter. They were burnt out. This was a more experienced person. This person had a master's degree. He had experience. He had really great experience. And then he got an ecologist position. So again, this works. And it's not magic. It's a formula. They followed the advice that I gave them. I give when we so you're going to get a taste of this advice in this training. You're going to get the framework. I'm going to teach you like what it is. And then if you want to go deeper on the last training, I will go over exactly how I do it in my program, what we do, and this is when we can go really deep, and you can it's more of like a step-by-step hand holding exactly how to get what you want. And it's just following advice. It's just following strategy. It's just a template, and there's tons of support. And again, it's worked for my students all over the world. So these are students from all different countries. Chicha is from Nepal. Jersey's, he was living in Colombia when he enrolled as a student of mine. Theodora is from Romania. Alana is from Australia. And then Karen and Francisco are from the US. Karen is a career transitioner. She's older. She's in her 50s. She was struggling. And all these people, they got one of these things, field jobs, tech jobs, PhD assistantships, master's assistantships. I put a variety of people in here with a variety of kinds of positions that they landed. So this works. It may take some time. It will take effort. It will take, for you to put in the work. It's not magic, but it works. So you might have been feeling disappointed, frustrated, angry. Maybe you're still feeling that way. Maybe you're, feeling these things about your career, but it is my goal by the end of this to get you feeling inspired. I'm hoping you're already inspired, feeling hopeful, empowered, excited, and confident. You can think about, I just thought about this right now. You can think about your career as the ball. Keep your eye on the prize, get excited for it like this doggo here. And just one more success. Like, this is all possible for you, to inspire you. This was in my last cohort of students. Dylan, he got results right away. He was working in Hawaii. He was working in a wildlife job, but he was doing invasive trapping programs to protect species. So basically he was killing animals, like, trapping. I don't know exactly what wildlife he was working with, but I know in Hawaii, the invasive species are like rats and cats and things like that. So he was like trapping and killing wildlife, or killing invasive species. And it wasn't his dream job, but just in a couple of weeks, honestly, or months of working together, he now has a technician position. I believe it's a permanent position. I think it's contract to renew every year, working with Mexican wolf damage mitigation. And that's one of his dream species to work with. Okay, so let's start getting into like the actual knowledge. This is something that took me a very long time to learn. When I was in my PhD, I only focused on finishing, and I understand why. It's overwhelming. It's a lot of work. So all I focused was on my dissertation. I never looked at, well, I can't say I never looked at jobs. I looked at jobs, but I didn't really take the time to understand them. And I'm telling you, what you want to do is slow down before you speed up. So some of you guys are so desperate to get experience, and experience is great, but you want to make sure that you're making the right choices that lead you to where you want to go. When you're starting out, you can just get any experience. It's not that big of a deal. But as you progress, you don't want to just depend on like what you can get, because you are either going to be taken down the wrong path, and by wrong, I mean one that you don't enjoy. Maybe it's right for somebody else, or you're going to get a bunch of like hodgepodge types of experience that make you not that competitive for any one particular job. A lot of people think that if they have a lot of experience, that they will be competitive. Like if they have a lot of different kinds of experience, that they will be competitive, but it's actually not true for most jobs. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'll stop right there with that. But it's important for you to really take the time, and you have a workbook, you have homework, do the homework and spend some time working on your career. It will pay off. Excuse me. I was listening to this podcast, and the a listener called in and was saying that they really want something to happen in their career. I can't remember what it was. I think they wanted to be like a public speaker or something. And the host is like, "Okay, what's holding you back?" And they were like, "Well, I don't have time." And she was like, "We don't have time? You don't have time for your biggest desire?" Like, this is what this woman was saying. She was saying, like, "I really feel like I'm meant to be a public speaker," but she just didn't have time to work on it. And the host was like, "Well, like, what are you doing?" Like, I understand. And she meant it in a way like we have, for sure have life happens to us, but if it's truly what you want, you create time for it. Like, you just have to find the time for it. If it's really something you want. If it's something that would be nice, okay, fine, don't create the time for it. But if it's really like your biggest desire, I mean, we're only on earth for a limited amount of time. You only have one life to live. If you're not pursuing what you really, really, really want in life, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So you have to decide. For some people, it doesn't matter that much. They can just work any job and they're fine. They're fine with that. Or other people, it's totally fine if you don't want to pursue a career in conservation and you want to volunteer on the weekends or something. That's also fine. But if you really want this career, then you have to carve out the time to put in the work to get it. I don't create the rules. I'm just a messenger, but that's the way it is. So I want you to like really think about like what your priorities are and how badly you want this. And if you want this, then create the time for it. Like, look at your life and where are you spending time that you don't need to spend time. And it's just temporary too. This doesn't have to be forever, but until you get your traction, until you get to your next steps, like, start carving out that time, whether that's waking up a little bit early, whether that's going to sleep later, maybe it is giving up some TV shows, some social media. Like, where can you do that? So we have 3 trainings. We only have a couple of weeks together, and I want you to watch these trainings no matter what if you decide that you want to go into this field. You don't have to do it perfectly, although it is so much better for you to show up live on these Zoom calls like you're doing tonight because you're really present, we're interacting. But if for some reason, I know like you guys have lives and say you can't make one of those Zoom calls, there will be recordings. Listen to them if you like, however you can get them in. I do a lot of free and paid trainings, and I walk my dogs a lot. I have 3 dogs now because my partner moved in with me, so we now have 3 dogs. So I do a lot of dog walks. But maybe you have a really long commute, like, and you don't have to, like, I mean, the slides are nice. They're pretty. For some of them, you might want to come back and look at them, but for most of them, they're just pretty pictures for you to look at, and you can look at me too as well. But think about it like a podcast. But I really want you to get this information in, and I want you to apply what you learn. So do the homeworks, do the workbooks. So tonight, we're going to talk a lot about mistakes. We're going to talk about why you're not getting what you want. We're going to talk about how almost all the advice out there is bad, honestly, to be frank. It doesn't work, it doesn't apply. And we're going to go over the first pillar, like, and this is the most important, like the thing that is really, really important to start your career no matter where you are. Some of you might already, once I reveal the pillar, some of you might already have it. That's great. You might already know it, but that's what we're going to do tonight. Tuesday, we are going to focus on experience. A lot of you guys we're going to focus on strategy, but experience is a big part of strategy. A lot of you guys are saying that you need more experience. We're going to talk about that a lot. I'm going to talk about this this published study that, formal research study done by scientists about what leads to jobs in our field. We're going to go over that study in detail. And we're going to talk about the other components of developing a strategy. So we're going to think about this well, actually, I don't want to reveal that metaphor yet. So stay tuned. It's coming at the end. And then the last part, we're going to be talking about job applications. A lot of you guys are applying for jobs and not getting anything. So we will talk about the biggest mistakes that people make, why they don't get interviews. And then at the end, I'm going to walk you through how to put all the pillars together, how we do it in my program, so that you get in a sense of how to do this stuff. And if you want to join me and other students in the program, you will learn all about that, what's involved, and you are invited to join. And we're going to open up the doors to the program. I'm going to limit it to 20 students. So once it's full, the cohort's going to be full for 4 months, and then I'll do this training again in 4 months from now. These trainings are going to be available until October 23rd, and I do this deadline because we all work better with a deadline, right? If you don't have a deadline and it's just up here, then you won't schedule the time to finish it. So I do this so that people prioritize it. So you have a couple of weeks to do all this stuff. And then just a reminder that on these live sessions, I'm going to be giving away master classes. These are recordings. These are classes that I've done. I've done them live in the past, but these are the recorded versions of different programs that I have. I have several options: Overcome Overwhelm. I have Resume Revamp, teaching you how to make a wildlife resume. Overcome Overwhelm is about overcoming overwhelm and like scheduling and getting things done in your life. I have Networking for Introverts, which is all about online networking, where it's for extroverts as well. And then I also have a new one called LinkedIn for Wildlife Careers, which is all about networking through LinkedIn. And I'm also going to be giving away one-on-one mentoring sessions as well. So make sure you stay until the end. I'll do the giveaway at the end. Okay. Here's what most people do. Not necessarily, I'm not going to say like this is wrong, all of these steps. Like, you do want to go to college. That's like not a wrong step. But it's more like their expectations don't meet what happens, like here, and like why they get so frustrated. So you do want to go to college. Most of our jobs do require a college degree. You do want to focus on getting good grades. Good grades are important. Most people ask professors for advice. Maybe they get some experience. This is more rare, and they graduate. But what happens is they graduate, and then they apply for jobs, and they're not getting anything. As you saw in the comments, this is what happens. Sometimes people say hundreds of jobs, even thousands I've read, and they don't get them. So then what they do is they search the internet and they look for advice on how to fix things. Maybe that's how you guys found me. And they often ask strangers. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen people post in Facebook groups asking for advice from strangers. How do you know that these people in a Facebook group with you are giving you good advice? You don't know them at all. Like, and you can vet for them. You can look at their profile and look them up and stuff like that. But I wouldn't, like, if somebody is at the same level as you, if you're an undergraduate in a university trying to get a career, don't take advice from another undergraduate because they don't have a job yet. They don't know what they're doing. So don't just ask for advice from strangers. A lot of people just think you need more experience and they spend money on getting experience, or they think they need more qualifications. They think they need more degrees, certificates, so they spend money. I've seen this over and over again. Some people do this with master's degrees as well. And then they get these qualifications and they keep applying. And they keep on trying to do the things to get them more experience. So maybe they are volunteering, maybe they're paying to volunteer, and just like none of this stuff is working. So they get frustrated, disappointed, mad, sad, bitter, and they get burnt out because they keep on trying and trying and they just can't keep up and they never feel good enough and it just doesn't work. I've seen this happen so many people. Again, I could make this whole presentation full of people who have degrees and they don't have the experience. This is somebody who I talked to years ago, and they had their master's degree. Oh no, sorry, that's something else. Sorry, this is a different quote. But yeah, people just feel like they can't do it. But it's not what they're doing. It's some part of the component that they have off, and you'll understand through this training what it is. So why this doesn't work. So employers care about experience the most. Knowledge does not get you jobs. So struggling applicants, they usually focus on courses, certificates, degrees, not experience, or if they are focusing on experience, it's not the right experience. So it really has to be the right experience. And we will go deep into that. It's not just any experience. And when you're doing these paid programs, there are always exceptions, but in general, paid experience is not considered as valuable because these programs are trying to sell you. It's kind of like a combination between selling you experience and selling you travel. And selling you like knowledge, like they want to like teach you courses and stuff. So the experience that you get, it's going to be like dabbling in like a bunch of things, and it's not going to be like solid experience. So we can go more into that, but knowledge definitely does not get you jobs. Degrees don't get you jobs. Degrees are more just like a checkbox nowadays. At least at the undergraduate level. Master's and PhD, it's different. We can talk more about that. But more courses, more certifications. And again, take what I say with a grain of salt, because there are always exceptions. It depends on what you want to do. But for the most part, they don't help you get jobs. Oops. Did I skip a slide? Yes. No one is telling you this. Not professors, career advisors, websites, etc. Because, as I mentioned, professors. So if you think about a professor's trajectory, they didn't work in other fields. They didn't work in nonprofits, the government. They didn't work in zoos, museums. Maybe they work with some people who do that stuff, but they're not asking them career advice. They only know how they went into academia. So when you go into your master's program or PhD program, like a research-based one, the professors you work with, they just know academia. And the advice is different for academia. Academia cares about different things than other jobs care about in terms of getting a job. And then also, like, how old is your professor? If your professor has been in that job for 20, 30 years, they're not gonna, like, things have changed so much. The advice that they give now is going to be really outdated. It's not going to work. This is what I was thinking of. So this is somebody who I talked to years ago. They had 7 years of college, which was a master's and bachelor's they're talking about. And nobody told them that they needed to intern or work. And that's what it is. They thought they could just get this is somebody who had a research master's degree. But when he applied for jobs, he was lacking experience like project management, like overseeing staff, like developing educational programs. So he wasn't qualified for the jobs that he was interested in applying for. So this is why when we get to the first pillar, you're going to understand why it's so critical. Online advice is usually bad because it's meant to get you clicks. If somebody has a picture of them with a cheetah, so many people are like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be holding, I think these are mountain lion kittens. Mountain lion kittens, like this is going to be awesome. So these pictures are meant to drive clicks. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to come up with like the best picture. And it's not accurate of what wildlife biologists do. Even if you do have a job where you are collaring mountain lions, or I think these are Florida panthers, actually. Florida panthers, you're not going to be going to the field every single day, like tagging kittens. Like there's just not enough transmitters to do that kind of work. So they're showing a snapshot. It's like a sales pitch. This is a sales pitch, essentially. So they're not giving you the whole picture. And universities, they want to sell you their programs. So they're going to give you kind of like a glossed over version of this. A lot of this information is actually written by people not even in our field. So let me give you some examples. So did you know that elephants communicate using low frequency sounds, blah, blah, blah. Pangolin scales are so strong that lions can break them. And then it says these species are endangered. But you studying how elephants communicate is not going to help save them. I know this because I studied elephants for my PhD. They're two separate things. One, elephant communication is academic. If you want to study elephant communication, you have to be a professor, pretty much. There's very few jobs outside of being a professor where you can do this kind of research. If you want to do elephant conservation, now those are completely different jobs, and you're going to be largely working with people because poaching or human wildlife conflict, human elephant conflict, those are the factors that are affecting elephant extinction. That's going to be working with governments. And if it is going to be research, it's going to be more like social science research, like studying the people and poaching habits and things like that. So this doesn't even make sense, because studying elephant communication or how strong pangolin scales has nothing to do with conservation. It really doesn't, or very, very little. Or pangolin scales in terms of lion breaking them. Maybe pangolin scales in terms of like wildlife trafficking. Sure. But so anyway, okay. And then they make it sound so easy. Become a wildlife biologist. Do this, take the courses. Basically, they're saying to get a degree. That's what they're saying here. Just get a degree and you'll become a wildlife biologist. And just to show you, this person this blog was written by somebody who has no experience in wildlife biology. They majored in English, they interned at communications, so they don't know the field at all. And this is really common. I actually have been reaching out to professors to give talks at universities. And I am surprised at how many people who are advisors in this field, so advisors in fish and wildlife departments, and they have no background in fish and wildlife. So this person they were administrative assistants. They've never worked in fish and wildlife. So they don't know either. And advisors, from my understanding, what I've heard from most people is they just more or less tell you like what courses to take. They're not telling you how to get the jobs. And that's why I'm here. And who am I? Let's tell you about me. So I've always loved wildlife. I always loved nature. I'll give you the abbreviated version because I can go on and on about my background. But I always loved wildlife and nature and never knew what I wanted. And when I was in college, I knew I didn't want to become a vet. I just wasn't into that. But I liked the idea of acting, and then I was scared to do acting because I thought it was really risky. You know, like you always hear about starving artists and, you know, you have people who are in theater waiting tables and stuff like that. So I was decided to do biology as a dual major with theater, so that if acting didn't work out, then I would become a doctor, which was a stable and safe career, becoming a physician. My brother recommended that I study abroad, just like for fun. I don't know. We just were having a conversation. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a really great idea. And I went to the office. I gathered brochures of the different study abroad places that they had connections to. And there were all these theater programs in Europe. And I chose a couple that were different. I chose one, I think it was Turks and Caicos. It was somewhere marine. And another one was in Kenya. And I've always been adventurous. And I just thought, like, when am I ever going to have the chance to go to Africa? And looking at the pamphlet, it had giraffes on it and zebras. And I was just like, this just seems like such a cool experience. I'm going to do it. So it took me all the way going to Africa to realize I could be a wildlife biologist. And prior to that, I had no idea, like, you could be a wildlife biologist. Like, the only person I knew about was Jane Goodall. And I was like, hell no, I can't move to, like, remote Tanzania and live with chimpanzees like the rest of my life. I was like, that's just not me. But when I was in this program, I fell in love with the elephants especially, but I also realized like, oh, as a wildlife biologist, I can work in Africa, but there's also jobs in the United States. I could work for the Fish and Wildlife Service. So this just seemed like awesome. I was like, I'm going to do this. It seems so great. And I was already a biology major, so I was like, this is my career. So I went back and I pursued it. I had a couple of internships. So I worked at the Bureau of Land Management. I worked at Disney's Animal Kingdom in their hormone lab. And I went back to Kenya to intern with the program for a year. And then I did my PhD. And when picking out my PhD, I was told to follow my passion. I was told to choose a project that I wouldn't get sick of over 6 years. And my advisor studied genetics. So and I was her first student. So I could essentially study anything I wanted for real. I mean, within reason. And she had already done a project on forest elephants in Cameroon. We had connections with the Wildlife Conservation Society in Gabon. So I decided to do forest elephant research. I loved my PhD. I loved my research topic. It was amazing. And then I graduated. And when I started applying for jobs, I never had a hard time getting a job. You know, at the beginning when I was getting experience, I remember getting rejected and stuff like that. But it wasn't like I couldn't get a job. I got a first job. And I never really had a hard time. And I knew I was really good at writing cover letters and just job applications. At the time, as I mentioned, I was married. I'm an animal lover, so we had a bunch of pets. So I only wanted to move once and find a house because at the time I had 2 dogs and 4 cats. Don't judge. Don't judge me. We didn't mean to have that many, but I don't know, we just kept encountering rescue animals. So, you know, like no apartment's going to take that many animals. So we needed a house. So I just wanted to like move, buy a house and like be done. But when I did start interviewing or applying for jobs, I was not getting any interviews for the most part. I was getting very few interviews. And I got frustrated. I was like, what is going on here? I thought the world, I was applying all over the country. I thought like, they're going to love me. I was really confident in myself. I was like, I'm going to get my dream job. And the reason why it was so hard was because my experience didn't line up with the jobs in the United States. People saw me as either an elephant biologist or a geneticist. And there's not many elephant jobs in the United States because there's not many elephants, or at least research jobs. Like a zookeeper. Well, I wasn't even qualified to be an elephant zookeeper because I had no zookeeping experience. So when I was applying for jobs, it was like fitting a square peg into a round hole. I was trying to like I had experience. I had so much experience, but I was like jamming it in there. So I would like apply for a job at like the Nature Conservancy, and I would say say the Nature Conservancy, I don't remember the exact details, but it would say like, you know, you could like your job entails doing bird surveys or like, you know, conducting research or creating research programs around endangered bird species or a habitat for endangered species in that area. And I didn't have any of that. I studied forest elephant social behavior and non-invasive genetics. So my research experience didn't fit what they were asking for. If they have somebody who's a bird expert, they're going to hire that person. They're not going to hire me. So it just wasn't working. It was a mismatch. But I learned mostly through applying for postdocs. So postdocs are temporary positions. They are after your PhD. And I only applied for postdocs that I was really qualified for. Because remember, I wanted a permanent job. I didn't want to have to move again. So when I saw a postdoc that was a temporary job, it was one that I was really perfect for. And I noticed when I applied for these jobs, I got interviews. And I realized I like did the math and I realized like, oh, like the jobs that I'm super qualified for are the ones that I'm getting. So I stopped applying for like all the jobs I was interested in and only applied for the ones that I was really qualified for. And when I use that strategy, for every job, roughly for every 3 jobs I applied to, I would get an interview. So roughly 30%. So I did end up taking a postdoc in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was a longer postdoc. It lasted 5 years. And since it was in Raleigh, North Carolina, Raleigh is called the Research Triangle. There's 3 cities that are close to one another. There's a lot of universities there. So I was like, for sure, I will get a job over the course of 5 years. So while I was in this postdoc, I was applying for jobs, but I was very selective. I'm not going to say I was like constantly applying for jobs because I was really selective about the jobs using my new method. Yeah, somebody said even though we still have other megafaunal herbivores. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So even if I was, well, and another thing is it's like it's values too. It's about knowing what you want. For herbivores, a lot of the jobs were focused on hunting, like deer management and hunting. And not only did I not have experience in that, but I just also wasn't interested in that. I wanted to do like more conservation. I didn't want to do game management. So there just weren't that many jobs also that like I was interested in that I was qualified for. So I got the e-mammal job and I continued to apply. But when I was applying, I still had the same issues that either I was coming up short, I was getting interviews, but just every time there was somebody who was just slightly more qualified. In one case, I was perfect for the job. I know I was runner up because I was at the museum I was working at. They told me I was the second choice, but the person who got it had 10 more years of experience than me. And it's just because there's just so many jobs out there that it's just more competition now. So people who have more experience are applying for jobs that don't require all of that experience. So from the museum's perspective, they're like, oh, we get somebody with 10 years more of experience for this job. I should say that my experience is more unique because I limited my job search to where I was physically. I really wanted to stay in Raleigh. I did get offers for jobs in other places, but I didn't want to move. So that's another factor. I don't want you guys to get too depressed about my story. And there were some things that I could have done in retrospect that I'm going to teach you guys in training number 2 to make my situation better. But I want you to know, again, it's not like I couldn't have gotten a job. I could have gotten a job, but I didn't want to move. It's more that I was really surprised that the qualifications I had didn't transfer over to other jobs. Another example is like I never took botany. So some government jobs I could not even apply for because I didn't take botany. I didn't have any botany coursework. In Raleigh, most of the environmental conservation wildlife jobs revolved around water, like water quality, things like that. So we're going to get to the first pillar soon, but maybe you're already figuring out what it is. So I lost out to people who had more experience or the right experience. Another example is I was also really good at outreach. So another example is a job where in outreach where somebody spoke Spanish fluently and I didn't. And again, I understand it from their point of view. It was for the state agency. They want to reach Spanish-speaking members of the community. So it makes sense for them to hire somebody who can speak Spanish. So it's just like every time I got like interviews, there would always be like somebody with like that one like extra thing that edged me out. Okay, I already mentioned that. At the same time, I started blogging. I really loved outreach. I was at the museum. I loved giving talks. And just on my own, I really wanted to share my research because I love my research, especially on elephants. Well, I loved actually all my research. I loved it in North Carolina too. And I would write these scientific publications. They would go to a journal and maybe like 20 people would read them. So I wanted to share with the world, like, this is like so cool. Like these elephants are amazing. This is how we're doing this research. So I started blogging. And I also started blogging about how hard it was to get a job. And like nobody was talking about this because nobody wants to be like, hey, I'm having a hard time getting a job. Like it kind of makes you sound like nobody, like there's something wrong with you or something. But this was really resonating with people. They were like, yeah, me too. Like, no, and I knew like it wasn't just me because my friends and I would talk about this, and including people with more experience or more qualifications than me. This led to me writing the book, getting a job in wildlife biology. And I just realized that I loved helping people with this. Like I remember in lab meetings and just like the interns that were working with me, I would give them job advice. And I got kind of sick of, saying the same thing over and over again. So that's why I do stuff like this, these trainings, because if I used to do like one-on-one calls with people and it just got tiring. So I make YouTube videos and I do trainings like this. And now I have my programs because I genuinely love helping you guys because I was where you are. And I listened to this podcast recently and they said you are most like fit to help the person you once were. So I was you guys. And I also know I felt so alone. And I also felt like I had nobody helping me. So that's why I do what I do now. And at the same time, I learned that like there's this thing called a digital entrepreneur where you can do things like this, like have programs. Before people could make money off of blogging, you still can, but that's kind of changed with AI and stuff, with the AI summaries and everything. That's really affected bloggers out there. So, but yeah, like for recipes, people like, I mean, this is like a different field than us, but like for cooking blogs, people could make tons of money because people would go to a cooking blog and there'd be tons of ads on it and they can get ad revenue. But now AI, now a lot of people go to ChatGPT and say, give me a chocolate chip cookie recipe. So a lot of people aren't visiting websites anymore. Anyway, and I wanted to create my own rules. I didn't want to work for a university where I had to do admin tasks. And I also do outreach and I have a nature program for kids. I wanted to do conservation on my own terms. I didn't want to work for a nonprofit and be doom and gloom. I wanted to be positive and optimistic. So I decided to stop looking for jobs and start my own business. So that's what I did in 2020. It actually happened right before the pandemic. So the timing was so funny. Not funny, but like it was very serendipitous because like everything was shutting down and it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing this thing where I'm working from home and gonna do Zoom programs with people. And yeah, so that's where I am right now. And I'm very happy with what I do. And I genuinely love helping my students. I get so much satisfaction seeing them get jobs. We have a Discord channel and we have a channel for wins. And I love checking that. I love seeing that they get interviews and they get jobs. So just some more of my students. If you staying on the email list, you'll get you'll get the link to the testimonials. You can check out my students. I have alumni profiles and everything. But yeah, like they get jobs. Okay, so here's what you want to do instead. We're going to get to the first pillar. You want to begin with the end in mind. So essentially, you want to work backwards. You want to do some reverse engineering. This is really the most critical thing. It's the most effective and certain way to get paid wildlife jobs. Now, you're going to need the steps in between, which we're going to go over. But this is like the biggest tip I give everyone. Like figure out what it is you want to do because wildlife, conservation, environmental jobs, they are so diverse, so different. And we're going to get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's like when I was growing up in the 80s, so you younger folks might not know this. There was a game called Perfection. Put in the chat if you know this game. Somebody asked about, do I send the recordings in the email? Yes, you'll get the recordings in the email. So send me right in the chat if you remember this game Perfection. But you had to, I can't remember exactly. You had a timer and I think you had to fit all the pieces in. And then when the timer went off, they would like pop up. I don't remember why. Like, it seems like kind of a waste of time. Like, why'd you put them in that from all pop up? But anyways, I want you guys to think about wildlife jobs or conservation jobs like this. They're unique. Like this is like what happened with me. If I have my research in elephants and I try to put it in this X, it's not gonna fit. So you want to figure out the job you want, what it requires, and then mold yourself, build yourself to fit in the X shape. There's so many options, and it's because it's so competitive now. That's what's changed. 20, 30, 40 years ago, you could just get a degree and get a job. But now, yes, there are more jobs out there, but there's more people looking for those jobs. So the applicants to job ratio has changed. So it's really common for there to be literally hundreds of people applying for jobs now. But you can get them. My students have gotten them. I have some more testimonials and upcoming trainings or more quotes from students. One of my students, she beat out 200 people for a job. So you can get them. But yeah, years ago, I don't know how many people would apply, but you could have like a degree, you could have a PhD studying frogs and get a job doing wildlife trafficking. Like it didn't matter as much. So the first pillar is clarity. You want to figure out what it is you want to do. As I mentioned previously, each homework or each workbook has homework in it. So I did have some prompts to help you guys follow along, but there's also homework. Do the homeworks. There's some questions in the homeworks and some exercises that will help you understand how clear you are. One is I want you to take some time and just visualize your dream job. Just have fun with this. Like just get quiet, put on some meditation music, like just search meditation music on YouTube, listen to it, and let your mind drift. And just really like imagine, like if you could have any job in the world, like what would that be? Don't be so analytical about it. Just like dream, have fun with it. And then I mean, there's more to the workbooks, but these are like two big pieces. And then start to get more analytical. Download the job tracker. You'll get this is all in your workbook. And at the very least, put 3 jobs that represent a dream job for you. Try to choose permanent jobs. So don't choose temporary technician jobs because those jobs are not usually representative of permanent jobs. But try to choose some jobs that represent not accurately match up with your dream, but you're like, oh, I would love to have a job like that. And follow the prompts in the workbook. And there's also prompts in the job tracker. So because the job tracker itself comes with some questions. So you can do all of them. You can do you can do the workbook. I recommend doing the workbook at least, but you can do the job tracker too. And this will help you get this will help you understand like if you're clear or not. And it's okay if you're not clear. I have help for you. But this is like a baseline. Okay, like where are you at? Are you totally maybe you're confused too. That's okay. But just start looking at the jobs to see what's out there and to help familiarize yourself with the requirements, the education, and the duties of the jobs that you're interested in. Okay, why? And we've talked about this a little bit, but the jobs are really specific. This is a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger's podcast. I listened to his podcast. I really like him actually. I never knew anything about Arnold Schwarzenegger until like I think I started watching his documentary for some reason recently on Netflix. And I was like, because I always thought he was so like obviously masculine and like a bodybuilder, but now I'm really into health and stuff. So I listen to his podcast. I like his podcast. It's all health related. But he also is like really environmental too, even though he's a Republican, which in our country is not associated with being pro-environmental. He has like a climate initiative and everything. But anyway, he is really big on vision. And we're going to use this like airplane analogy throughout the training. I actually just I just realized this training and I'm going to embed it throughout. Pilots, they don't just go in a plane and they're like, oh, I'm just going to like fly. And you aren't going to do that either. You got to plug in, you got to set the destination. You got to plug in the GPS. You got to like figure out where the GPS is or where your destination is. And if your coordinates are off, this is true. I don't remember the exact measurements, but like if your coordinates are off by a degree, then you can end up like miles away in the wrong place. So you want to figure out your path. And you might have to change your path to avoid some turbulence, like he says, or things are going to happen or whatever. But you want to keep your vision, and you want to have a vision. You want to set the destination. And there's nuances in our field, like the perfection game. So even if you say, I want to work for the government, say like you're like, oh, I know I want to work for the government. Say you want to work on wolves for the government. Well, if you don't know if you want to work for the state government here in the United States or the federal government, what you do can look really different depending on what kind of government you're working for. And then also like who is leading the administration at the time, especially for the state government. So I interviewed somebody from Alaska, and these are both U.S. government. You have the Alaska state government and the federal government, and they are fighting over the wolves there. The state government wants to kill them. The federal government wants to protect them. So even though it's the same species, the same country, in the same like job type, you can be doing different things. You can be having different agendas because the different agencies do different things. So again, this is why it's so important to know what you want to do, to know what the agencies do, to know what the job types are, to know what the jobs look like. A lot of you have probably seen this meme, and it's not that far off from reality. A lot of people think this is like what they're going to do, what I think I do. This is what I thought I was going to do. And yeah, in graduate school, I did have some experiences like this, not with a bear, but with elephants. But when you're at you got to figure out like what the job is. Graduate school is also temporary. So like, what is your job? If you're a professor studying elephants, I guarantee you this is what you're going to be doing most of the time. There is a job posting. Oh, actually, I think I still have it. I'll bring it up when I stop sharing my screen. Remind me to bring it up. But there's a job posting, or I'll just explain it to you. But there's a job posting for mountain lion research. I think it's a PhD, and the title is like, PhD in mountain lion movement ecology, which sounds so exciting. But then in the posting, it's like, you are not going to the field. So they already collected the data. They already collected the spatial, the GPS points. You're analyzing the data. So you're not going to the field at all. Like, you're studying mountain lions, but you're never looking at mountain lions unless you go to the field just for fun. And that's what my friend did in graduate school too. She studied black bears. She never went to the field. My other friend studied otters. She never went to the field. All of the data was collected for them by state agencies. So understand what the jobs look like. And that's not to say that all jobs are in the office. There are jobs in the field, but like you gotta understand like what jobs are those. So you got to know the different career types. These are my definitions. I've grouped the careers into different categories. There's research, academia, education, communications, creative careers, law and policy. The job tracker, I believe, covers these. Just covers like, roughly what these are. In the Successful Wildlife Professional, that's the program I run, we go over these in depth. It takes 6 to 7 weeks to cover all of the career types. And then all of the workplaces, because like I said, you can be a researcher, but doing research in government is going to look different at these different agency levels. It's going to look different if you work at a zoo, if you work in consulting, like the same job, research, but it looks different at all these places. Okay, so that is it for the first training. So if you guys have questions, start posting them in the comments. The next training, what we're going to do is you're going to learn about experience. As I mentioned, we're going to focus a lot on experience. We're going to be talking about this this published paper published by scientists. They collected data, they interviewed people, and they talked to employers what it takes to get a job. So we're talking about clarity. We're going to say like, okay, like I want this kind of job. Now we're going to talk about what does it take to get that job. So I hope you will join me for session 2, and I'm going to call out 2 names here, I think, to do master classes. So I'm going to look at questions, we'll answer some questions, and then I'll pull 2 names out. And if you are called, then send me an email at stephanie@fancyscientist.com, and you get to choose one of the masterclass programs. You'll be able to find the information on my programs page. The master classes are down here. You can read about the master classes, which one you want. Hey there, I just want to interrupt and remind you that if you want to be part of these giveaways, make sure that you are on my email list so that you can come live to the event. We have 2 more trainings, and I'm also going to do some giveaways just to the email list as well. So you want to make sure that you are a part of them. Let's see what questions we have, if we have questions. You are welcome. How did I find the eMammal job? It was just posted. I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere like, Texas A&M wildlife page. It was posted and I interviewed for it. The reason why I wanted it, but I didn't want it because it was a temporary job. That's why I was hesitant about taking it, but it worked with a really prestigious scientist I admired. I love my eMammal job. I tried to get it extended. I tried to get it into a permanent job. Ironically, now it is not eMammal, but there's an assistant. There's a position that's really similar to it, but I've moved out of the area and we're moving again. I'm actually moving out of the country next year. But anyway, now it's kind of like they have that job, but I love that job. Okay. Let's see. You think you're going to see belugas, but you just end up writing stuff while thinking about belugas. My PhD friend. That's funny. Yeah, somebody wrote about like you're off your degree by a little bit. If you miss something in the trainings, you're going to have access to the recording. So you can watch it on YouTube, you can pause and everything and go back. So what was the last part of the sentence? Working backwards is the most effective way. Yeah, you can go back to the trainings. It'll be recorded and you'll get that. Somebody answered you. What happens when you can't get internships even? So we're going to talk about that on the last training. If you're applying for jobs and not getting a job, whether it's an internship, a volunteer position, we're going to talk about that in training number 3, because it's usually one of 2 major reasons, and we'll talk about that in depth. How can we get experiences in a job that's mainly field work? So I'll teach you how to get experience in the next training. And if you want a job that's mainly field work, so first you got to find the job that is mostly field work. So again, so in the job tracker, there will be a link to my blog post that has different links to wildlife jobs. So you're just going to start scanning the job boards, and you can sign up for alerts at places like Indeed and LinkedIn and stuff, but just like start looking at the jobs. And there are jobs that do require a lot of field work. So just start looking at them and seeing what's out there. And then in trainings 2 and 3, we're going to talk about what you need to get those kinds of jobs. Like whatever job you choose, we're going to go over the things that you need to get those jobs. I have a master's and I'm struggling to find a wildlife job. Okay, so you've been bartending and you haven't had much experience in the last 2 years, so you have a gap. I would not worry about the gap that much. Make sure you watch training 3. Well, no, I don't want to reveal too much, but it's either your experience or your job application. We'll go over that, what I mean by that, but training 3 is all about that. Yay, I'm glad you're coming back for session 2. Yeah, the job boards, they can be unfocused. It is a lot of work. I actually think like and look in the job tracker at that blog post. I actually think a lot of good jobs are found in Indeed and LinkedIn, honestly. But if you're looking for jobs, I would definitely recommend checking the Texas A&M job board. If you're in the United States, it's a US board every day because it just is the most applicable to our field. There's also a conservation job board. Conservation careers, I don't love their job board because most of them are behind a paywall. I've never paid for it, so I don't know if it's worth it. I also found they tend to have a lot of just like volunteer positions or pay for opportunities and not really as many real jobs. And a lot of the jobs are overseas. So anyway, I haven't had as much success, but I think it's worth it, Texas A&M, to check it every day if you are looking at a job. Okay, you said we should apply to jobs that we match with perfectly. What if your experience is limited or old? Old is okay. So come to training 3. I'm going to talk about some of the things that you need to do to improve your job application, and you'll learn from that. But to like really get into it, I do recommend you join one of my programs because I will give you I will tell you in training 3 like some of the things I do. But when you join, I have 2 different programs for jobs. When you join a job program, like we can do reviews together. So you can like watch the trainings, do a job application, and I would look at the posting and I would give you like specific feedback on your job application. And I would tell you like how to improve, how to write your experience section. You're saying it's limited. I bet it's not as limited as you think it is. Come to training 3. We'll talk more about that. Oh, good. I'm glad you're looking forward to training 2. After obtaining clarity, how do we make adaptation to our plan on how to get a job with the constantly changing climate of our field? So we will talk about that. We will talk about that in training number 2. But basically, so we're going to talk about like getting experience and stuff in training number 2. But basically, you're going to be like working these pillars for the rest of your life, more or less. So to a certain extent, like you're not always going to be, when you're first trying to get like your first job, you're not going to be like, like constantly working this hard towards it. But you will know the pillars. And if you take one of my programs, you will do a deep dive into the jobs, into all these strategies and everything. And you will know all this information so that you will know what to pay attention to in your careers. And you will make sure you get those trainings because you'll know what's important. So you'll be like in that field, you'll be paying attention to the jobs that are out there constantly. And again, not like going crazy, like checking them every day, but maybe like it's not an activity you do like once a month, or you like go to conferences and talk to people and see how the jobs are changing and stuff. And you'll make sure to get those trainings so that you won't be caught off guard. Like AI is like affecting all different fields right now. So like that could be something that you could look into. Like what are some things that you can do to get that kind of knowledge, or that kind of, like being able to work with different programs or different software, things like that. You will have the foresight to be able to adapt within the field that you have. It's not a specific answer like, oh, you need to do XYZ. You're going to have it's like having the knowledge about how to approach that. Okay, let's see. I think how can we get jobs and experiences more specific to smaller fields such as entomology? We'll talk about that in the next training about how to tailor the experiences to the jobs that you want. Do you recommend tailoring your resume to each job posting? Resume? Okay, yes. Well, make sure you come to training 3. Yes, resumes don't usually need to be tweaked as much, but yes. If like when I was applying, we'll talk about this in training 3. We're gonna go over this a lot in training 3, so make sure you come to training 3. It is a lot of time, but resumes you don't have to tweak as much, but cover letters for sure. And it's a lot of work. But when you're really selective about the jobs that you apply for, when you're selective about them, you're not sending out as many applications, but you're sending out quality applications. It's a quantity versus quality thing. Will you be discussing how someone with no academic qualifications can start toward a conservation career? Yep. One of my students, I'm going to be talking about her, I think in next training, she had no wildlife experience at all. A lot of these questions I'm going to be answering in the future. Oh my gosh, you guys have so many comments. How do you manage planning a career pivot without your current employer finding out? I am not 100% sure about that one. That one would require some one-on-one mentoring, and we would have to talk about your unique situation. What if the perfectly matched jobs are not so many? We will talk about that in next training. Are there cases that people can get a paid, unpaid job right after undergrad? Yes. My students have, right after undergrad. Yes, I thought you needed a master's degree to get a permanent job. You don't. You can also get paid permanent jobs, but you probably will have to, we'll talk about this next training. You probably will have to volunteer somewhere to start out. It doesn't need to be a full 9 to 5 job. We'll go into that details next time. Do you feel like it's very unlikely to get a wildlife conservation or fieldwork position without a bachelor's and without going back to school? I think so Mia, do the research. So you start using the job tracker, do the research, see if you can find jobs. But my guess is that you do need a college degree. Most of the jobs I see out there do require a college degree, but start using the job tracker and start looking. There are for sure at least some that are at the state agency level. They might not be super wildlife-y, but like I think being something like a law enforcement officer at a wildlife agency, I think you can get without a college degree. So just start using the job tracker and see what you find out. If you start out, is it a good idea to get a variety of experience? We'll talk about that next time. When do you recommend getting started applying for jobs? I'm graduating from May, not sure when I start. I would start as soon as the job lets you. Like if you can take the job early and still finish school. I'm not sure what your situation is, but yeah, like especially if it's a master's or PhD, a lot of people do that. They get the job and then they finish. It's going to be harder, but you can do that and talk to the people too. Like when do they want you to start? But I would start like a couple of months out. Government jobs can take a long time. They can take like 6 months to actually for the job to go through. I don't think you guys have so many questions. So I'm gonna stop there because we're already a half an hour over. So what I encourage you to do is I'm gonna answer a lot of these questions in the next session. So hold on to your questions, and then if I don't answer them next session, ask it again. And then we'll do the same thing for the next session. But you guys are asking really good questions. I've never gotten this many questions. This is so great. What if your dream job doesn't really exist? I would say keep giving it more time, keep looking, but maybe also you can create your own dream job too. That's kind of like what I did. And somebody had some more technical questions. Where do you find the job tracker? Yeah, it's in the workbook, but somebody posted the link as well for you. Okay, so let's do the giveaways. That was part 1. Make sure you head over to the email list, to the link provided in the show notes, in the YouTube description to make sure that you are signed up for trainings 2 and 3. We have 2 more. You have 2 more chances to be with me live and to access this incredible information. This is my best free advice, so you don't want to miss it.